Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you don't have to judge anything at all because we do it all for you. It's instant justice here on Plank of the Week, and we have got one heck of a team for you today. Jeremy Kyle returns, very good to see you. Candice Holdsworth is here, Russell Quirk is here, and Rebecca Twomey joins us as well. So let's get straight to it. The Labour Party, I figure, are going to be sort of in this for the long run, aren't they?
I think it'd be fair to say the Labour Party quite possibly, and parts of it will be on every single week.
Yeah.
Wes Streeting, the health secretary,
Yes.
surpassed himself this week, and I'm going to try very hard to not use the wrong language. But basically, the way that he believes we should deal with an obesity epidemic, which there is in this country. There's a lot of people who are overweight. I go from the assumption that you weren't born big boned. It's because of what you've put in your gob. But apparently, Labour's idea is to give free weight loss jabs that cost £200 a month. So we're talking, what, $2,500 a year, £50 a week. We're going to give this to the feckless, fat, unemployed, because that'll motivate them to go to work. Now,
and they'll all get jobs,
yeah,
right?
Before everybody jumps up and down and says, Jez, the people on the dole, many of them are disabled and mentally ill. They are, but half of them aren't. And half of them are, I'm afraid, taking advantage of a system that allows them to sit and do nothing. I would rather say to them, go out and give something in return for what we're giving you, the tax we're paying. Stop telling me that we need to import people to be hospital boarders. Get off your ass and do it. But to actually say, we're living in a nanny state.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to medicate you, and that'll make you go... That doesn't make your brain want to get off your ass, does it? I don't understand it.
How can an injection give you work ethic? Because that's what these people are missing.
Well, it depends what you're injecting. Of course, I suppose. Adrenaline.
I'd like to distance myself. Pardon?
Adrenaline.
Yes, there again.
Yeah.
But it's true, isn't it? I mean, what does it say about our society that we're now saying, do you know what? You've made some bad decisions and you're finding yourself in a bit of a particular position, but I'll tell you what, we'll give you a free injection.
Yeah.
Taxpayers will
Also,
pay for lazy people.
Can I also just point out that nobody knows for sure what the long-term effects of these
No.
jabs are. They don't really know exactly how safe they are. But have a look at Wes Streeting telling everyone what a great idea it is on Sky.
For those people that are so obese that diet, exercise doesn't feel like it's having much of an impact, it feels like you're on a losing battle, I think the drugs can make a really big impact in terms of getting weight under control.
The fact that exercise isn't having much of an impact is because they're not doing anything.
Hang on, but why wouldn't it? I mean, exercise, by the way, it doesn't count just walking to the fridge.
I know.
I have to be really, really careful because this could be career-ending again. I've never seen anybody come out of a place where they've been kept for years.
Yeah.
That size.
No.
It's what you put in
Yes.
that results in how you look.
Right. And
But
what you
these-
do when you're not eating.
But these people that are disabled, inverted commas, often they're disabled because they're obese.
Yeah.
Right? So if they lost the weight, if they did put less into their mouths and they were to exercise, then they wouldn't be disabled. The problem is, of course, most of them want to be because they get the car and mobility and they get the benefits and so on. So I'm afraid, as ever, Wes Streeting, as a member of this hapless government, is barking up the wrong tree. He's not going to motivate people, is it?
Rebecca.
Why, excuse my ignorance here, but how does someone weight actually affect the work? I understand if you do a physical job, you're going to be a tree surgeon. But if you're a certain size, we live in a very tech-savvy world at the moment, lots of working from home, laptops, computers. I can't understand the correlation between being overweight and the inability to be able to do some form of work. The NHS is in complete crisis, yet we're using this drug that was used to treat diabetes, which is now being made famous with the Hollywood elite.
Right.
What we're going to see, I know what's going to happen. People are going to get these free drugs, become influencers, models, all these things. They're not actually going to give back to society. I don't understand why we can't be spending that money on educating
Because
people
we're scared
on
to tell
healthy
people,
eating.
because we're scared and we live in a world now and under a government that is too scared to actually tell people the goddamn truth. Can I tell you a very quick story on
You
that?
can, but let me just say this about the NHS, because
Sorry.
one of the places where you find a lot of fat people are working in the NHS. I remember saying this last year when they were on strike, the nurses. I said the only strike they should be on is the bleeding hunger strike because they're that fat.
Many years ago, very quickly, take
Go on.
30 seconds, I did a show in America and the first guest on this particular day was a very, very, very large woman. And she came out, I mean, it was quite, she was about
The sky's
400
darkened.
pounds. Yeah. And she said, I've come here today, Mr. Kiley, which annoyed me because my name's Carl. And she said, I've come here today because I know you're a man of honesty and I'm not happy with the way I look. I thought, I'm not
You got that
surprised.
wrong.
Were
And
they
she said,
Irish?
Can you?
This
Yeah.
person?
She said, can you tell me? Can you tell me what I should do? And I remember distinctly saying, I've told
Right.
Mikey this. Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to lie? She said, oh, no, I want you to be honest. The audience are like that, you know. I said, I'm thinking that the next time you decide to eat a big double pan pizza, you might try a frigging apple because it's gluttony. And honestly, the whole studio went like, that's America, nothing. And then 10 seconds later, she went, oh my God, you're right, Mr. Carley. It's fruit for me. God bless you and God bless America. And wheeled herself up. It's not rocket science.
But to Becca's point, I guess, look,
No.
to Becca's point, if they can pick up a remote control from their armchair, or they can pick up a hot dog,
And they can pick up a phone and order some more from Just Eat.
Then they can pick up a phone to work or a keyboard mouse or
Or launch your own business. You know, this is a brilliant country
Do we
in
think
so
it might
many
be-
ways.
Do we think it might be they just don't want to work?
Could be lazy.
Could be lazy.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that thing that we say all the time, that I don't blame people for not working in this country because they get so many benefits that they're actually worse off if they get a job. They don't get their rent paid, they don't get, their unemployment benefit, they don't get the free car, as you say. If you get a job and you're only making 26, 27,000, you're much worse off, so why would you?
Especially after tax.
Do you know how much you get for a dog?
Hey?
£17.50 a month to feed your dog as well.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you see beggars on the streets.
I've never
with dogs.
seen that.
Absolutely
My
factual. Check it
goodness.
out.
That's ridiculous.
£4.75 a week to
I
feed
did
your
not know
dog.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got something else for you. This is Julia Hartley-Brewer and her view on this story.
Julie, you sound very cheerful
I'm
today.
very, very cheerful.
Are you celebrating the NHS's 75th birthday?
Given the NHS is neither a human being nor a pet dog, is it a birthday? Wes, sorry, darling, I can't hear you over all the clapping. Oh, it's wonderful. 7.4 million people on waiting list. It's brilliant. 180 billion quid, 44% of our government spending.
I don't think he's coming back again for a while, is he?
He's not on breakfast for a while, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, not breakfast, sorry.
No, he doesn't do breakfast
doesn't
anymore.
do breakfast
No, I
anymore.
do breakfast now.
You do much?
I'm doing it tomorrow, actually. Actually, no, I'm not, because this is going out Friday night. Let's move to Candice. You've got Keir Starmer.
Oh, yes, Keir Starmer, one of my
granny harmer.
favourites. Well, So this story, I mean, this just infuriated me when I heard about it. So it was reported this week that apparently he has removed a portrait of Elizabeth I and Walter Raleigh, two of the greatest Britons of all time. I mean, she was one of our greatest monarchs. A fearsome redhead, so I admire her.
Yes, cool.
And Walter Raleigh, who basically defended this country from the Spanish Armada, which was the most fearsome military force of its time.
Is it true, which is what I've heard, that he removed Sir Walter Raleigh because of the Spanish Armada, because it reminded him of his plea to smash the gangs and stop the boats? And the Spanish Armada was actually stopped in their tracks by Sir Walter Raleigh and the Navy.
Didn't he also take down Gladstone? He's taken down Thatcher.
Yes. And he said that he doesn't like people staring down at him. And I'm like, that's because you feel inadequate, because these are some of the greatest people. You would think
Does that mean he only has missionary sex? Sorry, I don't know what I thought of that.
With a blindfold on.
Yeah, I don't know. Like people staring down at him.
I've just jipped a bit. I've just done. Maybe we've gone too far.
Sorry.
Is there any other way?
So who's he replaced the pictures with? Has he got like Trotsky, Lenin, Stalin?
Chairman Mao.
So it's a 20th...
Pol Pot?
Is
he up there?
It's a 20th century artist. It's a Portuguese artist.
Yeah, some European thing, right?
Still someone staring down at him, Candice.
I know, that's the thing.
So he's lying.
Well, but the thing is, no one believes that. We all know that it's ideological. It's either because he hates Thatcher or doesn't like colonialism, because Elizabeth and Walter Raleigh basically spearheaded the age of exploration.
We were talking about this week, and we seem to have got to a point in this country, don't know where you all think, that we seem to have to apologise for everything. I am sick and tired in just 14 weeks of thinking, genuinely believe this, I think this government doesn't like Great Britain or anybody that's British. I think they'd do anything to stick the boot into a country I'm proud to be part of.
Does he actually think, this is the trouble with these lefties, right? He actually thinks if you remove a portrait of Queen Elizabeth I, she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't wiped out history, has he?
Well, no,
just moved
he's
the
actually,
picture.
people now talk about it even more.
Yeah, maybe he's put a picture of Taylor Swift up, because we found out this week that he actually met Taylor Swift after he'd already agreed, and the government had agreed, and the Attorney General and the police and Sue Gray and everybody had agreed that she could get a very fast escort by the police back into town.
Maybe he's removing pictures of anybody that might be a better leader than him, which would mean that there can't be any pictures of
anyone ever.
They've all got to go.
He'll have to go for the old abstract look, won't he? He'll have to get sort of the Klee and all that sort of stuff.
Or maybe it's just multiple pictures of Wahid Ali.
Yes.
Across the wall.
Yeah.
Would you like him gazing down at him?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Multiple maybe multiple pictures of Wahid Ali's property. He's got plenty of those. Property.
Oh, property.
Yes. Yes,
Does
exactly.
he need his eyes tested again? Does he need to go to Specsavers? Because the optics on a lot of things he does, I'm like, that's really stupid.
Yeah.
He can't actually define what women is, as far as I understand, when he's asked what women is. And then he takes down 2 pictures of 2, whatever you think about Thatcher, phenomenal women for what women can achieve.
Absolutely.
Sorry to turn it this way, but Elizabeth I, insane money. Could you not just add some extra pictures? Because the act of removing, exactly what you said, Jeremy, it's like you're eroding history, you're eroding really important things as part of our history.
And also, by the way, they're our paintings, as far as I'm aware. These are paintings that are owned by the nation. And I say that Prime Ministers are a bit like football managers. You know, he's living in a property which we own, which is run by Britain, looked after by us, paid for by us. What the hell does he think he's doing, moving the pictures around?
Yes.
You know, leave the bloody pictures where they are.
I think a lot of that, you're quite right about optics, they're appalling. And you spend 40 minutes and think, what else can you do wrong? I think a lot of that, those sorts of things, like removing portrait, is lip service to the far left in his party. I think his problem, I said it before the election, his tent is so large, to be fair, that he spends his entire time trying to play A, B, C, D. And that's why I don't think there's any plan or anything.
But who is it?
I want him to be proud of being British.
Of course. And why wouldn't you be, particularly as the Prime Minister? But who's briefing this? Who's telling us that these pictures are coming down? Someone that's intent on causing trouble for him within his inner circle.
But they
that's
keep
very
blaming,
telling.
it's the Conservative everything with the money issue.
Well, no, it was Sue Gray was the scapegoat.
Well, that's the other thing, right? But since Sue Gray left, nothing's changed.
No,
they're still useless.
The next 100 days will be the same as the last 100
Do you know,
days.
when who took over from Sue Gray?
Morgan McSweeney.
You weren't here last week. We imagine Morgan McSweeney being like Game of Thrones.
One leg and a hook.
All right.
It does sound like that. But here's the thing.
Show me Morgan
This gives you an insight into the inner workings of Downing Street, right? I was told this by the Sun's political team. The question was put to Downing Street at about 11:30 on, I think it was Tuesday morning. Did Keir Starmer meet Taylor Swift? They finally got an answer out of them at 7:30 at night. 8 hours later, it took them 8 hours to work out what the answer was going to be.
That's what happens when you lie. That's what happens when you lie.
And I said, no wonder they can't solve the problems in the Middle East. I mean, it takes them 8 hours to answer a question about whether Keir Starmer went to see Taylor Swift backstage.
And it does, as a Briton, begin to make you think. You make a great point about the world stage. I just think we're going to be a laughing stock really soon, not just amongst our own people, but in the wider world.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly right. Over to you.
Talking of laughing stocks, my first nomination is Perpetual Plank Sadiq Khan. And I will explain why. So, on the tube, you may remember this 2 or 3 years ago, there were a number of things that were banned from tube advertising.
You haven't come with props again.
I have. Steady on. Don't eat it, it's raw. So, hot dogs, because it's fast food, effectively. Right. Hot dogs have been banned by TfL and Sadiq Khan from advertising.
I don't remember the hot dogs.
No, I have. A hot dog picture had to be taken down. It was some...
Of the comedian.
It was a comedian, and it was promoting his tour, and within the poster for the tour, for some reason, there was a hot dog. That had to be taken down.
God.
It was related to the name of the tour.
Yeah, if you remember as well, there's another
I'm told he
one.
had to replace it with a cucumber.
That's it, yeah. Cake, you remember the wedding cake? There was
Yes, I remember the wedding cake.
So cakes are
That
banned.
was a play, wasn't it? That they had like a play.
Is that fresh? It is.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one that was banned, yeah.
There you
Tony
go.
and Tina's wedding.
So, fast food, sugars, anything fatty, all banned, so you
Did they
won't
not-
see
do you
those.
remember
Not the unemployed, though. They're not.
Did they
As
not-
long as they've had an injection.
I hope you haven't brought a bikini, but I think they also banned bikinis. Did they not?
They
There
did.
was a picture of
They
a
did.
woman in a
Yes.
bikini.
Yes.
Get your summer body ready or something like that.
They
That was
did.
banned
So
as well.
you won't see any of these adverts now on any TfL property, so buses, tubes, tube stations, etc. However, the thing that hasn't been banned by Sadiq Khan is a hate preacher. I kid you not. So this is Ismail bin Musa Menk, who is also known as Mufti Menk. That's his advert there. Mufti Menk.
Is that him on the left
There's
or the
another
right?
advert, by the way, which is of him. There it is, burning dollars, which, by the way, is a criminal offence in the United States, I'll just add. So this is a man that has been banned from Singapore, banned from Denmark for saying such things as, for instance, gays are worthless, gays are filthy, and so on. So
And now he's on the Northern Line.
yeah, now it's all right. So, and Sadiq Khan, apparently, in a response to a question from Susan Hall on the Assembly, the London Assembly, he said, yeah, I'll look into this. And TfL have replied and said, no, he's not looking into it. It's all fine, apparently. Hate preachers on the Tube Network, on adverts, on posters.
Unbelievable.
All good, but not hot dogs.
Where did you get that story from? That is insane.
Have I won?
That's brilliant.
Have I won?
think he's won with that. I think that's brilliant.
I mean, it is extraordinary.
that's awful, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
Yep.
That's that. What does that say?
But this is what I mean. You know, you get these kind of nanny state type political leaders, and they want to police everything except for some things. So you don't want to police
things
hate
that
preachers.
everybody else knows are important.
So, And I wonder sometimes if he's doing this deliberately just to wind everybody up.
I don't think he's that intelligent, Mikey.
Mufti Menk, he also said one other thing, Candice.
Mufti Menk.
Mufti Menk.
Has he got any merchandise, Mufti Menk?
Gay people are worse than animals.
What?
Dear God, how is that in any way allowed? I don't understand how this is slipped through the net.
So we can't advertise wedding cake, but we can have a man who believes that you should talk about homosexuals like that. Unbelievable.
But they defended the advert as well. They said, it doesn't go against the policy. Yet, God forbid, you might want a piece of cake, or the McDonald's that are at literally every tube station across London.
I have to say this. I've said it to Mikey before privately. London should be ashamed of itself. I know he only got 1 million votes out of 12, and certainly other people should have said, no, Howard Cox stood up. It's unbelievable. How can anybody want that to represent you?
But not just that it's been allowed to happen, but now that they're defending it on the basis that it's OK. So they've investigated, they've been asked a question in a political assembly.
Can I have a bit of cake?
You can. It is literally fresh. I baked it myself this morning.
Don't very.
And this is,
do you want the hot cake?
I wouldn't trust that cake.
Really? That's not very
It
nice.
could have been laced with something.
Hang on. What are you trying to say?
Well, it might have been. I mean, has it been in your possession the whole time?
Yes.
Really?
I bought it from Sainsbury's on the way here.
Did you?
No, I'm not eating it. It's from Sainsbury's. I thought it was M&S.
Well, I'm just trying to get some sponsorship. Hey, Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
Come on, more cake, please. And we'll have some money as well, thanks.
Goodness gracious me. Maybe the hate preacher would like some. Rebecca, over to you. Another popular choice.
Well, this is a part of the NHS. This is the Gloucestershire Hospitals Trust. Now, the hard-working, struggling NHS, what should we do with that tiny amount of money they've got? Should we help sick people, employ more GPs, get more people in front of GPs? No, let's create a booklet. Let's do a 28-page booklet on how our staff should behave and what they should say.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
very important.
One of these things was don't say phrases such as the blind leading the blind, deaf for no reason, because...
Well, they're banned now, is it?
Well, they've been advised not to use it because it would offend people who have, lost their sight or are partially sighted. No, let's make a real point here. How about preventing sight loss? How about spending those resources, that time, on preventing sight loss or helping those people, right? Instead, let's tell them how they're going to be offended. This is what really winds me up. Why is all these bodies saying to people, you need to be offended, this is how you don't offend? Why don't you ask them?
It's so clever what you've just said. There's almost this belief now that you need to be offended about bloody anything, right?
Right. But why on earth would anybody in their right mind say something like to a blind person, it's like the blind leading the blind? You wouldn't, would you?
No.
You just wouldn't say it.
No, but wouldn't a blind person acknowledge that it's not a good idea for the blind to lead the blind?
Well, you would think so.
I got a complaint.
Well, also, there's a pretty
that.
good chance, by the way, if you're in a blind unit in hospital, there might be somebody blind leading somebody else blind down the corridor.
I got a complaint this week, but talking about the jabs thing and fat people, I didn't get a complaint for saying somebody was fat. I genuinely said that we need to discuss it. This is a massive subject.
Yeah.
I literally didn't mean anything. Oh, it's offensive to say massive.
Really?
Yes. This is what people are expecting to be offended. I love it. I think we should all go Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But it's a culture of fragility, and I just don't know what has happened to the left. The left used to be the warriors for free speech, and now they just want to constrict speech.
They used to be manning the barricades, didn't they?
Yes.
Sort of fighting for their freedoms to get away from the horrible, feudal landlords that had ruined their lives.
It's like we've switched sides, and the right used to want to ban things.
Yeah.
They were really
the right,
Lindsay-ish about everything. Yes, exactly.
But this, of course, is from the same organisation that wants to ask everybody if they're possibly pregnant, men and women, isn't it?
There's no words for this, is there?
Yeah,
There's no
and
words.
people
How
with
does
cervixes.
anybody take that seriously?
So
Say to a
28
bloke, are you
28
up the duff? How does that work then? How does that happen? I don't understand. Honestly.
I'll draw you a diagram.
No. I mean, I'm talking about a bloke. How does a bloke can't be bleeding pregnant?
And can I just say, I think Jeremy knows how to have kids.
Yeah, although
famously,
famously, David Lammy did say in an interview that he knew that it was possible because he'd learned and studied about it for a man to grow a cervix. He actually said that.
Yes,
out
a
loud.
man can grow a cervix. Honestly, that's our foreign secretary. Can I say the word I want to? What a load of bollocks. You can cut that out. It's, I mean, on it, not a load of bollocks. honestly, it's ridiculous.
It's worse than concrete, that, isn't it? I mean,
well, this is why this show exists.
Concrete. Yes,
isn't it? This is why
it is
show
unbelievable. We didn't have. You haven't got any other words to throw in that that they want us not to say, do you? The blind leading the blind.
Just saying hello now is going to offend someone.
Apparently saying hello. This came out today.
Yeah.
That if you don't say hello, you could be in breach of the law, because there was an employment tribunal of a woman who came in and had a very grumpy boss, and the grumpy boss didn't used to talk to her or acknowledge her existence because he was grumpy. She got fired later at some point or other, and one of her stories was to the tribunal that he never used to say hello to her.
Well, we're going to be sued, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just...
But you can't just say hello to someone. If someone does that to me, I'm always like, hi.
Yeah, but hang on. The other week we were told not to say hello to strangers because it might be considered to be an act of microaggression.
Which is a bit like
what?
Aggression.
By saying hello?
Yeah.
Yes, well,
it is really impossible to believe that I am turning into my father on
But
television.
you've seen on the tube now, there are signs that tell you can't look at anyone. But you can't stare at anybody on the tube. That's an offence.
It is.
Apparently.
But it's not for a terrorist. It's not for a hate preacher.
You can look at, you can't call him a terrorist, but you can call him a hate preacher. You're allowed to look at him. Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's right.
Yeah, Allah be praised. Now, coming up, the World Conker Championships is a thing, and I'm going to be talking about that. Also, a bit of slavery, as it was referred to the other day as old school slavery by Kevin O'Sullivan, as opposed to new school slavery.
This is Barbados, isn't it?
It is. We'll come back. You know a bit about that. We'll come back after this with more from Plank. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here, of course, for your delectation. I didn't know that the World Conker Championships was really a thing, I must say. I mean, we used to write about conkers when I was younger in newspapers, and there used to be, always every season there would be some cheating scandal. But I thought, to be honest, it's 2024, and it must be a thing of the past, surely.
Well, I feel able to talk about this subject because a man has been competing for 47 years. He's never won anything. And
he's not very good at it.
No. And suddenly everybody was saying, God, he's doing really well this year, because every time he whacks his conker, everybody else's conker split. Now, I don't expect laughter here, ladies, because it's very serious, but I am the only person in this studio today with a metal conker, because I, of course, have a titanium bollock.
Have you?
Yes.
I just thought you only had one.
Well, no, I had a fake one. It's
a bionic bollock.
I've got a titanium £279.99 testicle because I had testicular cancer. So I can sort of understand. Why are you rubbing yourself like that?
Because at what point do you have to replace it?
Well, it's supposed to be 20 years, but the problem I had at the beginning, I don't know where the camera is, at the beginning I would walk a bit like that. Oh. No, it's true. I was on
it that size?
It was bigger, and so I leant. So then they had to... Anyway, no.
I knew a guy who swelled up, actually.
Really?
And he could barely walk anywhere.
I used to go through
isn't that a Viz story? Isn't that Finbar Saunders? And he's on feasibly large
I used to go through airport things and it would go beep, beep, which is really embarrassing. So
it's hard to explain that one.
I could have basically taken my metal conker out of my wherever.
And put it on a string.
Put it on a string and beat David Jenkins, because mine's titanium.
His name is David Jenkins. He's 82 years old, right? And he was victorious for the first time in the World Conker Championship.
Surprised!
Since 1977.
It's like being in a water pistol fight with a Kalashnikov.
Absolutely right. He's known, I don't know why he's known as this name, but he's known as King Conker, right? I don't know why, because he's never won anything. So anyway, let's have a look. We've got a clip.
Brilliant.
The world of conkers has gone bonkers, with allegations of cheating at the highest level. The controversy is focused on this man, King Conker, also known as 82-year-old David Jenkins. He's accused of using a conker made of steel and obliterating his opponent's nuts with one hit.
I mean, it's just one of those stupid stories that could only happen in Britain, couldn't it? I mean, you couldn't have this.
But that journalist knew exactly what he was saying.
His opponent in the final of the Conker Championships, World Conker, was a man by the name of Alistair Johnson Ferguson.
It wasn't the John thing I got done by an unbelievable man with a metal...
And he went to the trouble of getting the fake steel conker. This is all allegedly because he denies it, right? Yeah. And painting it brown so that it looked like a real conker.
How do they check these things?
You know, I mean, when I was a kid, right, they used to dip the conkers in vinegar to make them hard, right? I was never really good at it. I don't know if you were, but I mean, I hated conkers. I mean, I used to like collecting them from the trees and stuff. But we've got another clip, I think, here of the alleged cheating.
This is the phone footage the committee has been examining. Mr. Jenkins in the green appears to put one conker in his pocket, then takes out another from a different pocket and throws it into the crowd. Could the one still in his pocket be made of steel?
I mean,
the one in my pocket's definitely made of steel, to be fair.
Steel
this is a national scandal.
I can't believe they've done so much work on this story.
It's probably cost the licence payer about 100 grand to do that particular story.
This is so British. It's so brilliant. A conker sport, and it's not been sort of taken over by the trans movement. There's no other agenda. But it's just something that it's just part of our culture.
It's a bit like cheese rolling.
But what's really, exactly, just like, and they've raised 400,000 as a charity. It's a charity event. They've raised 400,000, over 400,000 over the years for charity.
Right.
So actually, I don't care if you cheat. They're raising money for charity. You know, I just think it's such a brilliant thing and a brilliant
I think the man with the double-barreled name thinks it's a bit of a to-do. I'm not having a little
it's a bit rum, I think he's been saying. But we've got the chairman of the organising committee. Says that he thinks the steel conker was indistinguishable from a real one, and the only giveaway was its weight. His name is St John Burkitt.
Yeah, I bet he does.
St John Burkitt. He says there's been an investigation. It suggested no foul play. Mr. Jenkins himself has called the cheating claims a load of nonsense.
Right. Who knew the stakes were so high in conkers?
I know. Do you have conkers in South Africa?
No.
No.
I thought she was from Australia.
No, I'm English. I just lived in South Africa for 11 years.
No. There you go. With no conkers. Conker-free. Right, Jeremy, over to you for some slavery action.
This was announced earlier in the week. David Lammy. Oh, Jesus. Mia Motley, and I listen, it's not a secret. I had a house in Barbados, which I sold. They've had my reparations. But Barbados is under socialist rule. Prime Minister's a lady called Mia Motley. There's 38 constituencies in Barbados.
Does
in
she
the
have
last
a crew?
election, she won the Inter-Motley crew. Brilliant.
I get it.
She won every seat. So it completely controls Barbados. She's decided, and I would respectfully suggest the timing is quite interesting, that £200 billion is what we owe to Barbados, irrespective of the rest of the Caribbean. Now, people who watch this will have one opinion, others might have another one. I don't think we should give them a penny. No. I'd like to say, if you're going to start going back that far, are the Romans going to give us money for what they
Vikings,
did? It always seems to be Great Bloody Britain. But I would suspect that Mia Motley and all of her motley crew in the Caribbean are going to come out the woodwork now. Why? Because our stupid foreign secretary's just given away the Chagos Islands, which I think probably sends a message to the whole world, which is you can have a bit of Britain for free.
Of course, exactly.
Dip in. They've got they don't spend it on their pensions. You can have a couple of hundred
million. It's worse than that, because Lammy's actually in support of the whole idea of reparations. This is what he said in 2018.
I'm afraid, as Caribbean people, we are not going to forget our history. We don't just want to hear an apology, we want reparation.
No, he's actually, his parents are from Ghana, nowhere near the Caribbean.
I mean, I suppose you could, is it Guyana, isn't it?
Guyana, yeah.
Guyana, which I suppose you could argue is
it is in the West Indies, Guyana.
It's in the Caribbean Sea, it's not a Caribbean island.
He's changed, now he's the foreign secretary,
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I don't know what anybody else in the panel thinks, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, apologists, we're not allowed portraits, we're not allowed to be proud of, Churchill, we're not allowed to, any monarchs, Thatcher, we've got to give reparations. Look, the British Empire did what a lot of other empires did. It did some good and some bad. Yeah. That's the fact.
Well,
it
also
we actually
did abolish slavery.
Yeah, but that's quite relevant.
That's quite relevant.
And we paid slave owners, and we spent a fortune on the Royal Navy to try and stop slavery.
I think it's the latest thing for people to jump on.
Well, I mean, the reparations people say that it's paying the slave owners was the problem, because by giving them money, you basically created this whole raft of people who are very wealthy off the back of people who
stopped it. They can't do it both ways.
Well, they can't do both. It was also it's impossible to know who's supposed to benefit. I actually did this the other day on my show, and Rafe Heidelman-Koo, who knows a lot about the history of colonisation of the world, said actually, if you'd stayed in West Africa and not been taken to the West Indies, you'd be a lot worse off today than if you were living in America, where a lot of people ended up.
Just to say one thing, because I spent 10 years in Barbados and lived there for a while, it was said by quite a few people this week that it's ironic given Chinese links. I'm telling you categorically, it's 10 times more expensive to live or go on holiday in Barbados. They're losing the tourist industry, and all the property and all the businesses are being taken over by the Chinese. That's an absolute fact. I mean, I was speaking to my father-in-law the other day. That was from 10 years ago. So I think there's suspicion about the Chinese links, and there's suspicion about the Chagos Islands, but for me, stop bloody apologising. Come on.
How are they going to spend that money as well, if we were to give that money?
Where are we getting it from? We're skin.
Yeah, firstly, where are we getting it from? But secondly, how are they spending? If they gave us a plan and said, this is what we're going to do to help our citizens, you might start to think, oh, well, maybe there's something we could work on.
Mia Motley's got it wrong, because what helps her citizens, the great thing about Barbados is Bajan people, and Bajan people would tell you that the number one thing that they love and they can rely on is the tourism industry. But the British tourism industry is going down the toilet because of the costs.
But if you take the money, just say from the UK, which don't have much anymore, who really suffers in the UK? Which demographics who rely on social services the most, and all of these things, who's really going to suffer as well? So are you just, it's just a problem where you're just going to create more suffering.
Yeah, but how can you possibly countenance that people that were born in 1940, 50, 60 in this country somehow are responsible for things that happened 200 or 300 years ago to people that are 2 or 3 generations back from those that are now claiming reparations now? It's nonsense.
It was an elite thing anyway. I mean, the vast majority of people did not own slaves. I mean, they didn't even have the vote.
Right.
I mean, it was a very, very small number of people that had these huge landed estates. And you're talking about people whose ancestors might have been dirt poor, trying to eke out an existence.
And if those people, for example, want to repay some money, because I know there were a couple of families, there was that stupid Trevelyan woman, wasn't there? She worked for the BBC, and she went and gave £100,000 to some people in Trinidad. Yeah, I think so. And I thought, how embarrassing is that, and how kind of patronising that you're going to go, oh, we're terribly sorry that we ruined your ancestors' lives. Here's £100,000. Would you go away now?
The first slave traders in the world were black African slave traders.
And there was plenty of slaves in the Roman Empire. There were plenty of slaves in, the Persian Empire, the Chinese Empire.
Any chance to
and also, by the way, people say there
now.
aren't slaves now, but there still are slaves. If you go to the Middle East and you check out who happens to be doing all the grubby work in Saudi Arabia, it's a lot of Filipino slaves. And who's building all the buildings in Dubai? It's a lot of Bangladeshis who are treated about as badly as you can find. Ridiculous. Anyway, over to you, Candice. You're back with the higher education sector.
Yes. So this was quite a big story this week. Suella Braverman was due to give a speech at her old university, Cambridge University, at the Conservative Association. And a bunch of pro-Palestine demonstrators said, no, we're going to protest the event. So she was advised that it was too much of a security risk, it was too costly, and they cancelled the event. And what she said, and I agree with her, and I think lots of people have said this is why we need the Higher Education Act that Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, suspended, because there is such a problem on campus now with free speech. And one of the excuses that is used to shut down events is that the security is too costly.
Yes.
And under this act, they can't do that. They have to cultivate an atmosphere of free speech. It's ridiculous that we've come to this point. Like, it used to be that we had a culture where you didn't have to explicitly legislate for things, but we have to now because there's so many extremists on campus. And I just find it absurd that an elected MP cannot give a speech at her old university.
And then you look this week at those police officers who were filmed at the Virgil for the
for Hezbollah.
The Hezbollah. Yeah. There was a Virgin in London where people were waving flags saying he was a wonderful man. He was a terrorist scumbag murderer. And when a bloke walked past and said, do you think this is appropriate? The police said, well, that's your opinion, Hezbollah are a terrorist group. So we'll stop Suella Braverman. I might not agree with everything Suella Braverman. If you live in a democracy, everybody should be able to do what they want to do within the confines of the law, I would have thought.
Yes.
But the very worrying thing, of course, is over the next 10, 20, 30 years, the people that are at university now that you would want to be informed and rounded in terms of their opinions are being stopped because of a minority of extremists that don't want them to hear an opinion that they don't agree with.
Yes.
That is dangerous.
The group who actually wanted to stop this are not, my understanding is they're not a university society. They're affiliated in some capacity, but it's not even student run. And the thing is, like, the loudest voice...
It's infiltration, isn't it?
Yeah, it's heard first. Universities are supposed to be the place of debate, of question.
Yeah, critical thinking.
And it's terrifying, actually, that you're not, the freedom, you're not allowed to even just debate. If you don't know what she's saying, sit there and listen and question.
Yes.
And this is one of the best universities in the world.
No.
And they haven't got the intelligence to question.
Right.
No.
Exactly right. And the problem is that this has been used before. I mean, this is just the latest example of an organisation. It happened, I think, to Graham Linehan, didn't it, when he went up to Edinburgh to go to the Edinburgh Festival. And basically all these people rang the venue and said, we're going to come and make an absolute, horror show of this whole thing. And so they said, I'm sorry, we can't put the show on anymore. And he ended up doing it outside the Scottish Parliament, I think, in the open air.
Yes.
Because venues will get the jitters because they don't want this publicity.
I know. People often say, like, our constitution, we've never needed to have laws around free speech, not like in the US, for instance, where you have your First Amendment protections. But I just think it is looking like, with woke culture, which has absolutely no respect for free expression whatsoever, they're going to run right over you. Yeah. So you've actually got to have the law.
Feelings, not facts.
Yes.
Yeah, the very definition of wokeism.
Yes. Exactly right. It's absolutely ridiculous that's the kind of place. But universities have become this kind of ludicrous centre for all of this kind of, dictator-like behaviour.
My daughter's at Edinburgh University, and she's reasonable, but you can see it. Just by talking to her already, they're told one thing. It's a bit like
going a bit woke.
It's a bit it's a bit like going into a trade union. When Thatcher came in and she cancelled the closed shop and said you can strike if you vote privately and you decide, everybody just went with it because they were terrified of the shop students. I think there are students being dragged. I think that's like a lot of people who question their sexuality. Honestly, I think there's a feeling that you have to go with the flow and it gathers strength. It's appalling.
Well, most people don't really have the ability or the cojones to stand up to the crowd.
No.
Because it's too difficult. And, you know, they
and that's
worry
understandable.
it's understandable. They worry that it's going to hurt their career or it's going to hurt their standing in the community. Or
what you need to do is to get cancelled and then you don't give a toss.
Exactly right. Yeah. Very, very true. Are we taking another break? I think we are. Coming up, we're going to talk about some more members of the Cabinet, funnily enough. I think that's the fourth one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a building society doesn't like Robin Hood. Unbelievable. Robbing from the rich, giving to the poor, apparently it's not a good thing. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. It's time for Mr. Russell Quirk. And have you got any props for this one?
No, I haven't.
Should have
bought a pink wig.
A pink wig or a blue wig or something?
Because my second nomination is Louise Haigh, MP, who is the Transport Secretary for some inexplicable reason, but she is. And she almost single-handedly scuppered Keir Starmer's very precious International Investment Summit.
This is her getting her hair done, apparently.
Yeah.
She's about 11, doesn't she?
Another freebie,
well, and she acts about 11, Jeremy, I have to say, because what she said not 3 or 4 days before that summit, which, of course, now since then has been applauded by Keir Starmer and the government as having raised £64 billion for Britain, which it didn't, because, of course, much of that was started during the previous government's tenure. But anyway, she decides to go to war with P&O Ferries. So P&O Ferries, who, you could argue, have a slightly questionable approach to how they deal with their staff 2 or 3 years ago. I think they sacked a load of people.
They fired all of them. And then
so not very nice.
Wasn't great.
Not very nice. So, she was
technically you could have a problem, but keep it private.
So she's kind of got a point. However, what you don't do as a member of the government, a government spokesperson, an MP for the government, is 3 or 4 days before that very, very important summit. But don't forget, the Keir Starmer government is all about growth and wealth and, and so on. She decides to say P&O Ferries are a terrible company and you as the public should boycott P&O Ferries. Now, the problem is P&O Ferries is owned by DP World.
Yes.
DP World had packed their bags and were literally on their way over with a suitcase full of about £1 billion to come and invest in Britain. And of course, as soon as they heard Louise Haigh, a spokesperson for the government, say, your company is a bad company, they unpacked and said, OK, we'll sod you. We just won't come over anymore.
Yeah.
So cue then Downing Street staffers on Saturday and Sunday last week, desperately ringing DP World, lobbying and trying to make sure that they came back to the table. So not only was it pretty moronic of Louise Haigh to scupper, or potentially scupper that particular event, but my question also is, I wonder what it cost us. So you can imagine, can't you, that DP World, being pretty bright and smart, would have said, well, OK, we'll come back, this is pretty bad for you, but what's in it for us?
What's in it for us?
What are you going to give us?
I've been asking this question all week because you know that they will have got some kind of sweetener.
Millions.
Could be any kind of, it could be anything you like. It could be we won't charge any corporation tax for 20 years or something like that.
So she is single-handedly costing the taxpayer a fortune.
Yeah, exactly right. And then the most bizarre thing was that she, having said all that, then was told by Keir Starmer and by various other people that came out that she wasn't speaking for the government. She's literally a member of the government.
So you'd sack her, wouldn't you?
Well, except for this. They signed off on what she said. She basically called them rogue operators. Downing Street approved it.
Wow.
It goes out, which so more duplicity.
Can't blame Sue Gray anymore.
No, more duplicity from Downing Street, who say, she doesn't speak for the government. Well, why did you sign it off then?
And then also, just to prove how completely incompetent and moronic this woman is, of course, a matter of hours later, which sent me straight through the roof, she announced that train guards, if they do a 5-day week, get a £300 bonus. I've only got one thing to say. So you're taking 300 quid away from pensioners and you're giving it to your union paymasters.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Right.
We know where their priorities
for a day's work as opposed to for the whole winter.
I'm thinking of doing more than 3 days a week now. I'm going to be a train guard to get 300 quid.
I don't know. Anyway, listen, we've got a bit of...
How is she a cabinet minister?
We've got a little bit of Louise Haigh talking about how she's fixing the trains in Britain.
When I became Transport Secretary, I said we'd move fast and fix things, and that's exactly what we're doing. The previous government deliberately provoked and prolonged these strikes and hurt passengers and the economy. In direct contrast, this Labour government will always put passengers first.
That is not true.
No, there isn't, because I can give you some breaking news this week. There's going to be a new tube strike in November because they want some more money. Because you know what? She's going to give it to them.
There wasn't the sign of a train, though, was there, going past her?
No.
It was a strike.
Yeah.
So things aren't moving that quickly after all, are they?
That's just the thing.
How can you take her seriously?
You can't. The hair's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm sorry.
How can that be?
Unprofessional.
It's not great, is it? She looks ridiculous.
Yes.
I don't care what hair she has, as long as she does her job properly.
Well, she's not doing that.
Well, you won't be here to see it because you'll be on a P&O cruise, won't you?
Yeah, but the other problem for this business with the trains is that, you know, today or this week it was announced that the inflation rate's now come back down to well below 2%. I think it's 1.7%. Which is quite a long way away from the pay rises that they gave to the train drivers.
Going to give you the money back?
Give them 15%. You know, I haven't heard anyone from ASLEF saying, do you know, we feel really bad now because you've given us these really, really above
Imagine
inflation
if they did something
pay
really
rises.
good, like gave their pay rise back because of the inflation drop to the pensioners.
And so we don't need it. Same with the junior doctors. Junior doctors, 22%. That's approximately 10 times or more, 10.5 times the rate of inflation. So why do they never mention that?
Because that's not the rhetoric. That's not it's me. These unions who control the Labour government, they will want to make as much as they can in the next 5 years, in whatever way.
Yeah.
What I thought you said brilliantly earlier was, I've always thought that the Labour Party was the party of the working man and woman. It's not. It's not.
Of course it's not.
Their noses in the trough along with their union mates, I think, is far worse than anything we've ever seen.
It totally is. Rebecca, over to you. And the Sherwood Forest scenario.
Yeah, so Robin Hood, when I say that, you know, what is that, you know?
Tights.
Tights, the Disney Fox.
Friar
For me,
Tuck.
it's Kevin Costner.
I once went to a fancy dress party dressed as that. Am I allowed to swear on this show?
I don't know. Chuck?
I didn't. You
No,
can cut
make
this
it
out.
yes. He says yes.
So I went dressed as Friar Tuck, and the badge said, "I'm not Friar Tuck, I'm Tri-Fuck." That was fantastic.
Did it work?
No.
There you are then.
Thought I'd drop that in.
Well, with that image in our minds now, that I don't think will ever be erased.
Back for the other one.
I've never quite thought Robin Hood, you know, who stole from the rich to give to the poor, wasn't very inclusive, wasn't diverse enough.
No. Or one of the bad guys.
One of the bad guys, someone who didn't represent, you know, the hard done by majority.
Yes.
But let's wait for this. Woke culture has hit again, and Nottingham Building Society have decided to remove, because they used to be on their logo, they've rebranded to this like more swirly, soft logo. But it's really just to say because he wasn't diverse enough and didn't reflect the diversity of their customers. They're a bank. Banks don't have to have morals. They have to make money and put the money back to people so they can buy houses and do things. Stop trying to be woke. They have vanished him now.
But why isn't that seen by the left as a good thing? Because that's what they're going to do with tax: rob from the rich and give to the poor. Why is that? That would be right up there.
They're doing it the other way now. They're robbing from the poor and giving it to the rich.
Well, maybe Rachel Reeves would be their new logo in a kind of, you know.
No, she's Richard III, as we said. Don't mix up the old
stories.
Hold on a second,
we need to check with him. Morgan, do you think she looks
What do you think, Morgan? What do you think we should be doing? Yeah, I mean, it seems ludicrous. I think we've got a commercial. This is a commercial for the Nottingham Building Society. Have a look.
I'm Robin from the Nottingham, and I'm on a quest to get the best mortgage for everyone. This one's for you, the Browns of Worksop, a mortgage from the Halifax. And I don't just mean our best, that's too easy, but the best available deals to us from over 40 lenders. Jones, go nationwide. And our advice? Fee free. Why would we do this when no other building society does? We're the Nottingham, and we put you first. Call now or visit thenottingham.com.
He's annoying, isn't he?
He is.
He's the kind of guy that you find, and I know you do a bit of property work, but I mean, he's the kind of guy that you find
He's an estate
turning up.
agent.
He's an estate agent.
He's definitely an estate
I
agent.
was watching that thinking, for all the people who say it's time for you and I to give up, I think people like that give us hope that we should continue for a long time.
But hang on, can I just get this clear? So the Nottingham Building Society, they want to remove the whole Robin...
They have removed any association with that because he's not
So
diverse.
that
because
the sign has been changed.
And that's gone. Because Robin Hood is white and male, but the fact that he's a criminal was fine for decades.
That's okay.
That's okay. Right.
The other thing that some people have pointed out, which makes the story the most ridiculous story of the week, perhaps, is that he's actually not a real character.
Of course,
he's made up. He doesn't exist. So it doesn't matter whether he's diverse. No, there is no such
Hood
thing.
doesn't exist.
I used to, you know, my abiding memory of Robin Hood is Robin Hood Services, which I think are off the M1. somewhere near Nottingham.
To give to the poor?
Well, they rob from everybody basically because the prices are absolutely
19 quid for a breakfast.
Right? It probably is. Yeah. But I mean, we used to go to Scotland as a kid, and we always, for some reason, stopped at the Robin Hood services. And as a child, I just assumed that's where he lived. I thought, well, this must be where.
Has that been rebranded as well?
I didn't just
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
How do you feel now?
Now I'm crushed, because they've just taken him out of my childhood memory and I won't be able to think about him now, apart from that bloody idiot with the green suit.
They'll be coming for Santa next. Santa is not diverse enough, they'll be coming for everything that means anything to anyone.
They will. And
can I make a serious point?
Sure.
Though? Because I have a family.
You do know what show this is.
Because I have a family member who lives right near Sherwood Forest.
Okay.
And we were there recently and they had a big Robin Hood festival and the kids loved it.
Of course they did.
And I just find it so sad that part of history and culture won't be taught to children.
It's where the best centre parks.
What about Maid Marian?
Been there loads.
Yes.
Hey?
Maid Marian.
Was there anybody at the party dressed as Maid Marian?
I've no idea.
I can't remember. Your Honour.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got one more to do, and it's mine. And it's somebody, well, it's not really from the royal family. It kind of used to be in the royal family. And it is called Meghan Markle. We haven't talked about her for such a long time.
She's been missing.
I've dragged her back from, basically, obscurity. But Harry, I can tell you, looks a lot happier without her, doesn't he? We'll talk about some of that coming up later on Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here every Friday night, of course, for your delectation. We've got the final nomination coming from me, and it's a woman that we used to get on all the time because she used to be right at the forefront of news every single day, practically. But she's kind of disappeared. So I thought, maybe revisit Montecito and the Montecito Massive.
I love the way you do it.
Montecito and Meghan Markle, who, of course, apparently has been out and about chatting to people and telling them that she's been the most bullied person in the history of bullying. And of course, you've got lots of different people also feeding into that sort of matrix. We've just seen Prince Harry on his own, haven't we? When he was out was it New York he went to? Where he was wandering around looking very happy on his own.
Because on his own.
Appearing at the Diana Memorial Awards or something like that. And people were saying, this is the beginning of the end of their marriage. But there's a guy who used to work for both of them, used to be a bodyguard for her when she was in Toronto on Suits. And he said, basically it was a very, very difficult job because she was so demanding.
Yeah.
And it feeds into all of those things. The things
well, she's lost loads and loads of stuff. Isn't she alleged to be not a very nice person when it comes to the people that she deals with?
Well, she's very keen on a sort of 5 a.m. email, apparently. She's very keen on sort of,
There's a bit of an irony, her saying that she's bullied when some might say that she's...
It's often the case,
I got slagged off 5 years ago by saying he will be back in the United Kingdom with his ginger tail between his legs.
On his own.
I don't mean that in any bad way at all.
Don't worry.
And she will be there with 2 kids. That is never ever going to work. And I listen. We've all made mistakes in our lives. I think he's whipped. I'm not using the first word, and I think that was patently obvious. And I think she saw what she could achieve. I think she's horrendous. All this, I didn't know who he was. He'd set out to achieve.
Of course she knew who he was.
So we're not buying this. No one's actually buying.
Well, I think
I don't give a toss about her. Do you?
She's not the most bullied woman in the world. I think there are probably quite a few people.
She's taken us for fools in this country. And the great thing about the British public is they won't have her at all. They will not have her. That's why she doesn't come back, Russ. There ain't anybody that'll have her.
I mean, Candice isn't the only one that's going to make a serious point. If you're the victim of domestic abuse, let's say, and you hear someone like Meghan Markle, who comes from an absolute life of privilege, saying that she's more bullied than you, how does that make you feel?
I just think that, they tried to quash these rumours of her being a bully at work. But in Hollywood, they're speaking openly about it. It seems to be a pattern. It really is. And you look at someone like Camilla, for instance, who had so much hatred years ago, but she stuck with it. She went for the long term, and now people respect her now.
It's really interesting. She was the most hated woman in the world, Camilla Parker Bowles, certainly amongst royalists. And you're right, through graft and through hard work and keeping her head down. I have the greatest respect for Camilla Parker Bowles now. I think she's done an amazing job.
So it's time now to decide who should be the winner. And I mean, Labour are playing a pretty strong card here, aren't they? Because you've got Louise Haigh, you've got Wes Streeting, you've got Keir Starmer, you've got Sadiq Khan as well. I mean, it's quite a lot of Labour politicians there, aren't
Don't envy your job, Mike.
It's very difficult because I don't want to keep giving... I mean, last week we actually gave it, I think, to the BBC. for their homage.
I think you have to give it to yourself.
The Iranian church leader. What, conkers?
I think the world
conker
is that Dave. I mean, honestly, a steel conker. I mean, it's brilliant.
It is. I mean, we must stress.
Is he a genius?
It's great. Why not?
That's made of steel.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying it's not true, right? So, I mean, even the fact that he would even consider doing such a thing would make him a plank. All right, I don't mind. I mean,
seriously, have a vote.
David Jenkins, a.k.a. King Conker. It just sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds mad.
Well, he might win it just for the name.
Just for the name. King Conker, you are Plank of the Week. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much to Jeremy. Thank you to Candice. Thank you to Russell. Thank you to Rebecca. We'll see you all same time next week for more from Plank of the Week.